What exactly has China demonstrated over the past weekend, its military capability? Senior Colonel Zhang, I want to begin with you. Of course, you are coming from the Navy, so help us understand the submarines, stealth fighters, as well as earlier we know the aircraft carriers. What have all of them put China to in categories of military strength in the world?
Well, it is true that China has achieved great progress in terms of military strength through the acquirement of the conventional arms and equipment, and also the nuclear-powered submarines, just as you mentioned. So the fourth generation fighter, we have acquired the J-20. It has used the stealth material and technology to cross its radar reflection section, and also it has a long combat radius to fight, and it can master air supremacy in the future air wars. And also but the first aircraft we have acquired is only a conventional aircraft carrier. Its displacement is only about 50,000 tons. I think although we have achieved such progress, but I think the peer Navy still lags far behind the U.S. Navy.
What are you talking about? Exactly what are you referring to?
As for instance, compared with the number of the aircraft carriers, the United States Navy acquires now 11 aircraft carriers, nuclear-powered, with the recent adoption of the USS Ford, the newly built nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. Their displacement is about 100,000 tons. So China's aircraft only 50,000 tons, only one. And compared with the nuclear-powered submarines, the United States has about 70 nuclear-powered submarines, including 14 strategic ballistic missile submarines. So China still lags far behind the United States Navy, I can say.
Well, that is according to the Navy officer, but what about to you, Mr. Zhao? Of course, you have been an expert researching extensively about the DPRK issue. Of course, the intercontinental ballistic missiles would very much attract your attention, I would assume. So this time, China has what they call the Dongfeng 31AG. Of course, that is having a range of 11,000 kilometers, reaching any parts of the world, I guess, as a result of this. What kind of capability has China demonstrated through the demonstration of this very advanced missile, intercontinental ballistic missile?
Yeah, of course, the ICBM is the cornerstone of China's military powers and also signals China's major power status. China in recent decades has invested heavily into nuclear modernization, and the DF-31G is one of the recent results of that effort. The DF-31A is capable of reaching a distance as far as 11,000 kilometers, being able to cover almost the entire 48 lower states of the United States within its range of strike. I think there are at least two major improvements of the DF-1G version, which is the upgrade version of DF-31A. One is this DF-31AG has extendable back end, which makes the missile capable of being launched anywhere, even from unprepared soft soils. So that increases its capability to conduct nuclear retaliation under any battlefield conditions. And secondly, this new missile has a new carrier. It is called the TEL, Transporter Erector Launcher. Meaning now this missile have off-road mobile capability.
Right. It
can travel not only on paved road, but also off-road. That greatly expand its operational range. And also, I'm sure this new missile is also armed with very advanced penetration aids, being able to countering advanced missile defense capabilities, given that there is increasing deployment of advanced missile interceptors around China. This is very important for China to maintain its nuclear deterrence. But another very important factor is the reason why China is willing to reveal this new missile I think, is because China already has another more advanced ICBM under development. So that could be the long-rumored DF-41. So there might be something more powerful coming down on the going forward.
Just to add what you have just said, this specific Dongfeng 31 AG, of course, has another characteristic, which is carrying multiple warheads rather than just one warhead compared to the earlier generation, which is the 31A. So all of these characteristics, where do you think this would put China in terms of the capabilities of intercontinental ballistic missiles? And we know so many countries are developing it, the United States, UK, Germany. You see also India, North Korea working on it as well. So what is China having in mind in bringing out in very fast speed different generations of intercontinental ballistic missiles?
Yes, indeed, China is making very rapid progress. There is report by foreign media that China has tested ICBMs capable of launching multiple warheads. And in this regard, China is quickly catching up. And in some areas, China is even leading ahead. Compared to other countries, China has its own mobile ICBMs, road mobile ICBMs, and the United States doesn't have road mobile ICBMs. All the American ICBMs are based in silos underground, which limit their mobility and survivability.
I see.
So there is a unique advantage of Chinese road mobile ICBM. And also in terms of Russian ICBMs, Russian also focuses a lot on liquid-fueled ICBM, the so-called Sarmat ICBM, the next generation Russian ICBM. It is liquid-fueled, it's silo-based, therefore its viability is also in question. So I think China is really moving very fast forward in this regard.
And what about that in North Korea? Do we know any information about that?
Well, North Korea just conducted its second consecutive successful flight tests of its ICBM. Apparently, the technology is still very pre-limited and also preliminary. And also, there are some key technologies that has not been proven. For example, the reentry vehicle, whether the warhead can withstand the heat and the vibration during the reentry phase of flight. There's a big question mark. And of course, with this very preliminary ICBM, North Korea's capability to defeat missile defense systems is very much in question as well.
I see. Ms. Clapp, I hope we have not bored you with all of these information about the weaponry, which is not usually the topic of our program when you look at the history. But this time, it's an interesting phenomenon because, Ms. Clapp, it is not China that is hosting a military parade. Almost at the same time, Russia was doing its own naval parade. The United States and Georgia together was doing their own military exercises, joined by some of the other NATO countries. How should we read, Ms. Clapp, from your perspective? All of these happening almost at the same time. What kind of message are they sending to you as an analyst?
Well, first of all, let me just point out that the United States does not generally have military parades. In fact, if we did have a military parade, it would be received very critically by the American public because it would be considered a waste of the taxpayers' money and a diversion of the energies of our military forces. As you point out, yes, we do have joint military exercises, but they serve a practical purpose of exercising our alliance relationships. We need to have interoperability with our allies, and we have quite a few of those. I have spent a lifetime seeking alternative ways of resolving disputes so that we don't need to use military force. In fact, all of these nuclear weapons that are being displayed by the major nuclear powers, including the United States, have the ability to wipe out the world several times over. And if they were ever used, the conflict would escalate very quickly into the annihilation of the whole Earth. So it just seems very silly to me to be talking about the relative abilities of one nuclear weapon over another nuclear weapon. It doesn't matter. Sorry, but I am very skeptical of military parades.
I understand your perspective, but Mr. Zhao, since the military, particularly the nuclear weapons were invented, they were used, and they have been using as a way of deterrence, rather as a way of weaponry to strike the other parties. That's why we are still alive. And that is why I want to ask you the similar questions as I did to Ms. Clapp. How should we understand the almost same time military exercises, military parade, all in a way trying to demonstrate the capabilities to the party or to the other parties, happen at the same time? Why are we seeing such an intense frequency of these things happening around the world regarding China, United States, Russia, and some of the other players these countries are working with?
As you rightly pointed out, the primary goal of nuclear weapons is for deterrence. But there are three key components, three key elements of deterrence for deterrence to work. One is capability to deter. The other is the political resolve to use this capability. And third element is the capability to communicate your resolve to use this capability. So China is actually taking a page from the American playbook. Increasingly, China, after China obtains credible nuclear deterrence, is willing to display its capability and is willing to show its resolve to use this capability if needed. And China has done so through many means. China has conducted parades, which is an important way to show the capability. And China has actually put one of the advanced DF-31 missile vehicle at the military museum for the general public to see. And China has, through TV and news reports, openly revealed new progress about nuclear submarines, ICBMs, missile forces. All those are means to show China indeed has the capability. China is now freed of the missile defense network or the conventional precision strike weapon that can threaten, in theory, China's nuclear forces. So China is becoming more confident about its deterrence and is delivering this message through a more transparent manner.
And what about to you, Senior Colonel Zhang, because you are from the military? So to a civilian analyst like Mr. Zhao, he read the messages in the way that he just interpreted. What about to military people like you? What kind of message do you think this has been sending to the rest of the world, to you particularly? I mean, 12,000 Chinese military people in different kind of formations participate in this parade. What to you is this message?
Well, I think there are at least two aims. First is that we want to demonstrate, show the achievements of this round of defense and military reform conducted in recent years. And we can see the achievements in terms of equipment and also the training of the military troops. Second, I think, of course, any parade will send a signal to the outside world. Or we can deem this as deterrence. So just as Mr. Zhao said, deterrence could be achieved by other countries, maybe through two, at least two. One is the capability you should show to the other people that you have the capability to fight back if you are attacked. Second is the determination and will. If we are attacked, we will absolutely fight back. So especially for the show of the nuclear weapons will show that these nuclear weapons will play a role as nuclear deterrence and also nuclear counterattack if China is attacked by any other country.
And therefore, I want to go back to Ms. Clapp. The other two gentlemen have come up with their own interpretation of everything. But to you, when we are in a world whose order is dramatically changing, I don't think I have been exaggerating what I just said. How do you think Washington can analyze clearly the situation? And can Washington do that with the White House pretty much in opposition to some of the other key important organizations of the government at this point, Ms. Clapp, and a vacuum of sound decision making in Washington, which is one of the biggest political capitals in the world. What would that mean when it comes to military dangers and war, even the threat of wars elsewhere in the world?
I can't answer for the White House or
You
this
can't.
administration.
I know.
I have been retired from government for 15 years now. I worked as a diplomat in government, and our goal was to negotiate differences, not to fight them with military force. So I'm not a fan of threats by military force. And I don't believe that we should be doing that.
But you know, Ms. Clapp, I have to say here, since we're already reaching almost the end of our show, that it was the United States which started the war in Iraq. And at this point, not many people think it was necessary. So it is not the United States never exercised the military power and used it in the wrong way. And that is only one of those examples.
I agree. I agree that we should not have invaded Iraq. I agree with that, and that's when I retired from the government.
Great respect for you, Ms. Clapp. But before we go, I do want to have the two Chinese analysts help us to understand more about this. You know, what is next? The Chinese spokesperson of the Ministry of Defense talking about all of these showcasing of weaponry and military capability do not have anything to do with things in the surrounding situation. That's the word they used. But at the same time, it does demonstrate China's military powers. So how is China going to use this power correctly, smartly, and do it in a way that is for its own benefits and also for the benefits of the others? We talk about deterrence, we talk about many strategies. How to use it well? Senior Colonel Zhang.
Well, I think first we want to use these weapons, including the nuclear weapons, to be used mainly for self-defense. So we want to show our determination, will to fight back if we are attacked, and also we want to demonstrate the capability that we can fight back. So I think this is again a deterrence against any country that wants to attack China. They should think over before they do this.
So the message is very clear, and
Yes.
the things behind the message is also very clear to you as a military man.
Yes.
And what about you, Mr. Zhao?
I think clearly China has expanding economic interests across the globe, and therefore China should really focus their growing military power to better protect its citizens overseas, its economic interests, its investments overseas. That would, focus the military for self-defensive purposes. But I also agree that when a country becomes more powerful militarily, it will face a temptation to abuse this power for narrowly defined, self-interests. I think other countries, previous superpowers, did not really face this or address this challenge properly. I think for China, it is also true for China that China should stay alerted to this constant temptation against self-narrow interest. But to, at the same time, as President Xi Jinping always says, we should never forget our original heart, which is China's original heart is for the benefit of the entire human being, for the benefit of the common interests of the international community. We should always remember our original heart.